Hello friends, for today's video we're going to be looking at Attack on Titan Season 4, specifically episodes 65 through 73. Last week, I shortened the amount that I was actually planning on watching because I had a feeling that we were going to have a return to the pure intensity that is the majority of this show, and I really wanted to chat through a lot of the bigger concept type of things that I thought that the first chunk of episodes did really well, and I am very glad I did that because that assumption turned out to be quite correct. This whole batch of episodes was so much going on, but also so many new mysteries, which at some point I'm like, when are we not going to keep getting new mysteries? We're in season 4. We're in the last season. It makes a point to say the final season in the opening. So I'm like, oh my gosh. And a lot of the stuff that is arising in this chunk has left me very much like, what? But not in a bad way. Not in a bad way. So I'm going to touch on some of the things that get revealed within this chunk of episodes, and then, as always, I'll go through these specifics. So the biggest thing, at least in my opinion, is what the heck is Eren up to? I don't know if Eren has just descended into his villain era. I don't actually think that's what's happening whatsoever. I know some of the characters surmise that he is actually being influenced by Zeke, and that somehow Zeke is controlling him or manipulating him. I think, if anything, it's the reverse. I think somehow when Eren touched Historia, or Krista, at the end of the last season, and he had seen a lot of everything is connected, and if she had been the one to take the Titan, she would have seen it, but because he's not of that lineage, he doesn't typically have that power unless he makes contact with somebody who is royalty. So I think when that happened, he tapped into the ability to see everything that's going on. However, I don't think that he has whatever that block is within Krista's lineage of the founder, so I think he actually has the ability to go against whatever that block is, while simultaneously trying to puzzle out everything it was that he saw. And I don't know if he's just been also slowly tapping into more of the memories that are within the Titan that he has, which would be, you know, his father's memories, the Owl's memories, and then all of the people before that. And he's combined that knowledge with what he saw when he touched Krista's hand. But I think that he's up to something. I do think this means that Eren is not necessarily the Eren we knew before, but I also think that he still has that piece of himself within whatever you want to call him at this point, like his body. I think he's combined all of this knowledge together, and he has knowledge of Eren, the knowledge that Eren possessed, and the feelings that Eren possessed, I think, are still in there alongside all the other things. But if this is all true, and if this prediction is correct, what potentially frustrates me a little bit is the just tell somebody mindset that I feel so many of us have when you have a character that is taking it upon themselves to do everything themselves. They don't want everybody to be influenced or to risk themselves. No, I have to do it all on my own. If that's what's going on, then it's not my favorite. However, if he's somehow seen the path that will lead to finally everybody, things work out to some degree, if he finally has been able to tap into that and see that, and this is the way to do it, then I guess that's the best case scenario, and maybe cluing other people in, as nice as it would be for you as the viewer and all the other characters, as nice as that would be, maybe there's legitimacy to him not telling other people what's going on. If it turns out that he's just bad now, then I don't know if I would be super upset, because Eren's never been my favorite. They already took away my favorite, but I don't think I would be too upset, but I just think he's too kind of simple in his ways. Up until this point, he's always just kind of been like a rage monster who wants to get back. And he also has shown so many times that he has wanted to do the right thing, that he cares about Mikasa and Armin, and I don't know that I think that the person he's showing everybody currently is really Eren at this point, but also I just think that there's more going on and that I can't quite figure out yet, even with as fun as it is to theorize. I can't actually figure out what's going on until I have more information, I think. I just think that he has information that we don't know. I'm trying to summarize now before getting into the specifics. I think he's manipulating Zeke. I think he's actually manipulating everyone, and he's just doing whatever he has to do for the end result that is the ultimate best case scenario. But is that too easy? I don't know, because I feel like the show never quite takes the easy route. But I think it's something along those lines. Because I really don't think he has always hated Mikasa. We'll get to that. So let's get into specifics. So this batch of episodes kicks off not quite where we left off. We left off in the previous episode with Eren turning into a Titan, and then Lord Tiber gets thrown up into the air, and it looks like Eren's about to eat him. And then we start with Lord Tiber sitting in his carriage talking to his commander. And this is probably my one consistent negative for this, which I'm a fan of this show. I have, especially all the things I talked about last week, I feel that it has set itself apart. Even if the rest of the season goes downhill, there's just been so many things it's done incredibly well. But I do feel that pretty consistently, it likes to leave things off with a cliffhanger and then go back in time. At least thus far, it's not been as bad as season 2, where it felt like every few episodes, you'd get a cliffhanger and then it'd be like 3 hours earlier. And you're like, stop! Get me caught up and then let's go! Stop making me go back in time this much when that's not... It doesn't matter. Anyway, point is, I feel it has done that twice. I don't feel it has. It has done that twice within this batch of episodes. Once right here where it's like, let's go to this conversation. And then another time later, it did kind of a, okay, we're caught up. Now let's get you caught up, which I feel like that one was somewhat necessary because of how they structured the beginning of this season. The fact that there was a big time skip between seasons 3 and 4. But this one I did not feel was necessary. So I didn't love the intro to this particular chunk, but that's a very minor criticism. It's just one that's kind of consistently come up. Within this conversation, however, you do hear that Lord Tiber seems to be under the impression that he is indeed going to have to sacrifice himself based off of what he knows. And you get some of this. This is one of those situations where, because they're not the main characters, because I don't have a lot of emotional connection to them, because they don't have the highest level of relevancy to the greater plot and all of the mysteries afoot, as a result, I don't know how much I cared about what was going on or recognized the significance of it. It's one of those things that perhaps on a rewatch, this conversation would be a lot more interesting to dissect, but I put it fully on myself that I didn't really care that much about what him and the commander were talking about. But anyway, from there we get this high intensity fight between Eren, and then you see stupid Beast Titan shows up, the Jaw Titan, the Cart Titan, and then we have this new Titan that the Tiber family had, which would be the Warhammer Titan, which was pretty cool, I will say. But there was also a little part of me when they kind of skewered, I'll say, Eren onto that point, and then at some point they slice that in half, and then he's just standing up with the thing in him, and I'm like, dude, you had him. Why did you take him off of that? I feel like you should have just left him there because he couldn't do anything. You could have just smacked his head off or something. Anyway, I did think that the Titan looked cool. Obviously, Eren consumes it pretty quickly, meaning it's not something that's drawn out over the course of several episodes or even seasons. He consumes it within this batch, and how he does it is he gets the Jaw Titan and then smashes it, which I was like, oh, that was pretty clever. So I did enjoy that. But I definitely noted the parallels between the level of destruction that Eren is causing here and the very opening of the show when he witnesses what the Titans are capable of. And you see within this episode, you have some of the children getting trapped and then trampled, not all that differently from the fact that you saw his own mother, Eren's mother, being stuck and then helpless, and all these people are trying to escape and the chaos that ensues as a result. And it really is kind of a very full circle violence begets violence sort of moment. So I don't like to say I appreciated that because it's not fun to witness, but I do think that the show has done a good job showing it doesn't matter whose side we're on. This level of destruction, especially when it pulls in innocent people, is always going to look horrific. When Mikasa shows up, you do see her say to Eren, "Eren, come home." And so I wrote in my notes, how long has he been gone? Because I was under the impression, just from seeing glimpses of some of our characters here and there in the previous batch, that everybody was in on this somewhat reconnaissance-like mission and that Eren was at the center of it. I did not realize at the time that Eren went off on his own and everybody's trying to figure out, hey, Eren, what the heck are you doing? And that he's pulled everybody and roped everybody in. So at this point, I didn't know how long he'd been gone for. Also, I put in my notes that Flock continues to be so annoying, which, oh my gosh, does he level up in the annoyance factor within this batch of episodes. I didn't think I could dislike this character anymore, and I just do. I hate him. Before I was like, he's not as bad as Zeke, but he's just annoying. And now I'm just like, no, you really suck. You would be worse than Zeke if you had Zeke's powers. But you don't have Zeke's powers, so you're just relegated to that annoying guy who causes trouble. But the amount of trouble you're able to cause, even with your puny, pathetic levels of competence, oh, it's so aggravating. I hate this guy. I hate him so much. Anyway, and then with the Warhammer Titan, I wrote, oh, it's like an umbilical cord. And then I realized I don't know how to spell umbilical.
Umbilical cord.
And then at the end, Levi. Levi showed up and I was like, yes. Pretty much now if Levi's on the screen, everything gets better. And that segues us into episode 66, which is titled Assault. And then I wrote, where's Armin? He's going to destroy all of them. As soon as the fight was happening, I was like, hey, why is Eren, because again, I didn't know that Eren had gone off on his own, but I was like, why is Eren doing this? Just put Armin in the middle of anything, get all the Titans together, and then he can just blow them up by forming. He doesn't have to do anything. He can just pick up the pieces and eat them. Anyway, so then from there, I put no, because that's when the Beast Titan had shown up, and I was like, no, I hate him. And then I wrote rematch, 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 although we didn't really get it, which was a bummer. And then I also noted, is Gabby in some ways like the new Eren? So I already talked through the parallels between the opening level of destruction and the level of destruction we're seeing here, but also the way in which it's impacting the characters. You see her already, she's been kind of a lot even before this happened, but then she just immediately transforms into this rage monster who isn't always necessarily thinking clearly. She just wants to get revenge. It is her single-minded focus at this point. And I definitely think there are parallels not just with the setting and the consequences of the actions, but the way in which it forms people to sort of replicate their way of looking at the world. My thought about Armin transforming, though, returning to Armin, so then he does show up and destroys pretty much the entire Navy, and I was like, ah, there he is, and he did essentially exactly what I thought would be a good idea. I think him being out when he transformed was probably the quote-unquote better way of going about it, because it brings in less civilians' deaths, but it still killed a lot of people, and I don't know if all those people that were just sitting on the boats were necessarily, bad guys in a lacking nuance sort of way of looking at it. I'm like, I mean, he's killing a lot of people, and he sees it. He looks around and he kind of is like, oh, is this the level of destruction that you saw? I don't know if he was vocalizing that to Bertholdt, because obviously that's the form that he has taken. That's what who he took it from. So I don't know if he was sort of thinking that, or if he's just thinking, I think he's thinking toward Bertholdt. But I did think it was kind of interesting the way in which you see a very quiet transformation of Armin's character. It's very, very subtle, but I think it ties back to when he saves Jean way early back at the beginning of season 3, and he shoots that individual who was about to kill Jean. And then you see that, I jokingly called it a pep talk from Levi, which it was basically like, well, you killed people, so get over it. This is who you are now. And I think Armin kind of has taken that as, yeah, I am that person. I don't think he relishes it. I don't think he even really wants to have this ability or these powers, but he recognizes sometimes he's going to have to use them. I mean, I say that, but also I'm like, do you have to though? I don't know if you have to, because I don't know if any of this is really necessary, which I think he does continuously question. But if anything, I feel Armin is one of those character types that has turned into the soldier who, or the warrior, however you want to look at it, but that character who follows orders, but also is constantly wondering internally, is this the right thing? But they continue to do whatever they're told or whatever the mission requires. And I don't feel his personality is at all the way that that character is usually portrayed, because Armin is the thinker and he's very, very sweet, but he always does sort of turn into this level of force, or at the very least his ideas lead to certain amounts of violence. So I do find him to be a very interesting take on that character. I really did want Zeke to actually be dead. This was my next point. I said, please actually be dead. And in the parentheses I wrote Zeke, and I knew he wasn't going to be, because I was like, that's too easy. But I really wanted him to be. There's a part of me that's like, I know that the whole idea is that if nobody eats the person who is holding the Titan power, it's that then those powers will just transfer over to someone else. But there's a part of me that's like, but can we just kill Zeke and not have him around? I mean, I know that that's not ever how anything would get resolved. I just hate him, and I want him off the screen. I hate him so much. Anyway, I also noted that Sasha had sort of swapped her bow for a gun. We'll get to more about Sasha here in a moment. I also was thinking, as this fight is happening between Eren and all these other Titans, I thought Rainer's gonna get left behind again. That did end up proving to be correct. But anyway, I also wanted to note that the character of Jean, there's a scene where he goes to fire a thunder spear at someone, but then he sees the person is a child, and he has this moment of hesitation, and then immediately after he's cursing himself thinking, how did I miss? Was it because I was, he has this excuse in his mind. You're like, no, it's because I think he is one of the most violence averse people in this show. I think he's somebody who really despises having to harm anyone, because you do see hesitation occur numerous times with him. Obviously, there's the part with Armin that I was talking about earlier. Then there's at the end of that, the battle of all battles, when it seems like they've got Rainer and Hanji's kind of like, I should kill him. And he's like, but what if? And then he immediately was like, gosh darn it, why did this is all my fault. And they very quickly are like, no, it's not your fault. But then he does it again. So I do like the consistency of our characters, and I quite like Sean. I feel Sean is underrated. I don't actually know if he's underrated because I don't know how anybody feels, and I avoid seeing any spoilers of any kind. So I guess I mean that I think I have not given enough time and attention and admiration and love to Jean, because he's a great character. He might be top tier for me. I mean, it's hard to compete with the Levis and the Irwins, but he's a great character, and I really like him. Then I was so excited. I mentioned Hanji a second ago. I was so excited because when I saw the airship, I was like, oh, is it Hanji? And then immediately you see her, and I was like, yes, let's go, because I just love her, and I love the idea of her continuously getting excited over the ability to create and innovate. So I loved that she made the appearance, the way that she did. The very end of this episode, I was a little frustrated because obviously you see Rainer shows up and Eren's just holding the jaw Titan, and he just keeps kind of looking at Rainer and then holding. I'm like, you have time to eat him. Just eat, because that's what he's about to do. He's about to eat him. And then transformation occurs, and then he doesn't do anything. And I'm like, you very quickly could have just ingested him and been done. Episode 67 is titled Assassin's Bullet. As soon as I saw that title, I was like, oh no, who's getting shot? Didn't surprise me that Gabby was the one to do it, because I feel that, yeah, that's kind of the character she's been shown to be up through this point, and based off of what has transpired and the level of rage that she is feeling, I'm like, yeah, that's not surprising that she was the one to do it. And yeah, then they kill Sasha, I was sad about this. Sasha is probably not among some of my absolute favorite characters. And I do actually think that later when you see her father and how they speak of not just her, but their mindset of life, I think that's when it started to settle in a little bit more. I think the shock of everything, and also the fact they kind of held it out and you were wondering, is she dead? Is she injured? Is she going to make it? So it was sad. I don't know that I was as devastated, though, as I was when other characters died. But it was quite sad, and especially because you just got Connie being like, what would I do without you? You guys are special, to Sasha and Sean, and you're like, no. And I think that kind of was serving it up to you, like, yeah, something bad's gonna happen. So I did feel I was preparing before it even happened. I didn't know who it was gonna be, but when it turned out to be her, I was like, oh, yeah, that's too bad. I did think that Gabby's monologue that she has about how she's trying so hard to prove that the Eldians are, that at least some of them, like herself, just look at how hard we're trying and these ones are messing it up for us, rather than directing the anger where it belongs, which is at the people and society and institutions that perpetuate the idea that any of you feel the need to prove yourselves. And this is an idea that is so easily extracted from this show, and you can apply it to so many different things or different groups within our own lives. There are so many instances where somebody in some way is oppressing someone or causing harm in some fashion or just putting them down, and they will try to be the best version of whatever group they're a part of, just so that they can assimilate or appeal to whoever it is that is, I'm going to use the phrase bullying them, but obviously it can go beyond just a bully. But they'll try really hard to be like, no, see, I'm not like the rest, I'm normal. And the second somebody over here does something that is louder or has more attention put on it, then suddenly this is not making them the person who is also affected, that's trying really hard to appeal to the bully. Instead of being like, I wish you'd stop bullying me, they look at the other person like, oh great, because of their actions, I'm gonna get bullied. Additionally, when it's like, oh, if only everybody over here could unify, and then actually all of them recognize their own worth and the fact that it's not rooted in how the bully treats you. I just think that this is done really well, but also while watching, especially with what ends up happening, you're just like, no, Gabby's stupid, that's not how it works. But she's not stupid. She just is having, I think, a very normal reaction, especially because she's so young. And I think she is not seeing this clearly or fully, and she still has so much that she needs to disentangle. So even though I find her conclusions very frustrating, I also think that they're very understandable. I just am like, no, as a person who cares about these characters, to have them harm each other, it's so frustrating to watch. I did think it was very interesting, though, that Sean says to Eren, Sasha only died because you dragged the scouts into this. That's when you really, aside from the note of, come on, Eren, let's go home, I feel this is also cluing you into the fact that they don't seem to want to be here. Eren seems to be making decisions on his own now. And then I concluded my notes of this episode with, so what's up with Zeke? Because they bring the kids in, they're like, here, you want to be mad at somebody? Here's your hero. And then they're like, no, he's a traitor of some kind. I'm like, well, he's the worst always. I don't care if it turns out that Zeke magically is somehow similar to what I described about my theories about Eren. If he's like, I think I know the way, that's ultimately, even though there's going to be death, this will be what's best for society. I'm like, I don't believe you. I don't think you've actually found the only route. And I think this is just your weird, twisted way of always being somebody who's holding power. I still don't know all the ins and outs of Zeke's mind and his ideas about things. But I don't believe him ever. I'm biased, I don't mind admitting, because I hate him. But I digress. Let's go to episode 68. I had very few notes about this episode. I did write Yelena because this character, I was thinking, we're going to have to be mindful of this person. I thought previously when you see them show up and they lead the other Titans into that, it's not a well, but it's a place that's pretty far underground. I was like, is that Armin? Wasn't Armin. New character. I just didn't know who they were yet. There's something I wrote. I'm appreciating getting context, but any plan allying with Zeke is dumb. I don't know how anybody's like, well, Zeke says something about this like rumbling, so maybe we should take him seriously and take him at face value. And I'm like, no, when should we, why would we do that? I was so frustrated. Hanji does have a moment later where it's actually really sad. She's like, why did you leave me in charge, Erwin? And I'm like, this is her probably biggest mistake, this moment of deciding, well, let's see what Zeke has to say. I'm like, no, don't. Just any correspondence with Zeke, just like throw it in the fire and burn it, because he is not worth having any kind of connection with. Anyway, unless that connection is between Levi, swords, and his face. Otherwise, no. I also put in my notes with little weird designs around this. I put, so Eren ruined everything. And the reason I put those little designs is I was thinking, I need to come back to this. Because, yeah, he did. He did kind of ruin everything. But I don't know why, and I don't know his motivations. Maybe he didn't technically, but he's not cluing anyone in. And then I wrote a quote from stupid Zeke being like, can you please stop glaring at me? I'm like, well, can they make him any more unlikable? Because Levi's just sitting there. I'm like, why would he not be glaring at you? Why? Just accept it. If you're going to commit atrocities, at least be like, yeah, I did those things. Don't pull this like, excuse me, can you not, please? I'm like, what? No, you should be like, I know you hate me, that's why he's glaring. Like, why? The audacity to even ask is so irritating to me. Anyway, and then I wrote Annie, because you see Annie and her little crystal thing, and then that leads us to episode 69, which is titled A Sound Argument, I guess. Anyway, so is Eren borderline being consumed by his memories? That was my first note. I'm gonna move past this because we've already kind of dissected that. And then they talk about, well, we don't want to sacrifice Krista, and also apparently Krista is pregnant now, but we don't know a whole lot about that. And I put, we're trusting Yelena and Zeke too much, and then I said, why is Eren the worst now? And then the whole part with Hanji of, why did you make me commander? Ugh, poor Hanji. I feel so bad for her. I think... I mean, who do I might feel like the worst for her, and also Sasha's dad right now, currently. I feel really awful for them. Hanji's great. Hanji is too, I mean, I know she kind of like tortured that one guy before, but I feel like she's a little too pure-hearted for this level of power. I think she sort of rejects it, which is why it makes her a good leader in a lot of ways. But it's devastating to watch. This is why Erwin was the best. Anyway, I'm going to move on. Episode 70 is called Deceiver, and I start by saying that Gabby's annoying. And then, because she beats that guard when she's like pretending to be ill, and then the guard goes to see her, and then she slams him with that brick, and then they escape. But she keeps beating on him, and I'm like, I mean, yeah, I get it. Because our heroes are also responsible for killing a lot of people, so... Anyway, I also saw that she had... obviously I saw it. I heard that she said... I don't know why I introduced this quote this way, but anyway, I'm not going to share a meal with devils. And I'm just always like, girl, just... Like, if you... just looked in a mirror, it'd be the equivalent, because you are like them. I need you to get there, even though it's your entire life of brainwashing. But at this point, this is what's unfair. At this point, now that I've seen how much we've dedicated to Rainer and like the way in which his mind has been very fractured based off of the trauma of what he's gone through, I'm like over here being willing to kind of be like, oh, but like, how would he ever break out of that? And then with Gabby, I'm like, okay, well, I already spent time giving sympathy to one character, so all of it's run dry, and that's so not fair. She's loud, and she's reckless, and Falco's sweet, and I'm like, dude, Gabby, chill, because Falco is trying his best, and he's just trying to be there for you anyway. So I am being extremely unfair in my reactions, but on, actually sitting back and thinking about it, sort of reflection on reflection. I'm like, I get why she's like this, even though it's sad and annoying sometimes. And then I put Sasha's dad taking them in with just like a face. Flock. So I was like, of course he was the one to leak the info, which isn't even the worst thing he's done within this batch of episodes, which we'll get to. I put, don't put those people in a cell near Eren, because they're like, oh, these young people like Flock and the other ones who leaked this information, put him in a cell. And I was like, don't put him anywhere near Eren, though, because they obviously are obsessed with Eren, and they suck. So don't put him anywhere near where they can make contact. And also, this is nitpicky, and I'm not mad about it. I was just like, what? That's not true. So one of the Jaegerists, as they eventually, you discover, are calling themselves, one of them asks Mikasa, like, have you ever been in a cell? And Mikasa is like, no. And I'm like, yeah, you have. Yes, you have. You were in a cell because you disobeyed orders, and you guys were punished. And then also, did we all forget, like, the sleepy hair Mikasa? I was like, what do you... Yeah, you have. So unless we're in some different reality where Mikasa wasn't at some point in a cell, which I don't think that's the situation. I don't think it's like we've split into different possibilities, and then at the end of the season we're going to come back to the one that we have always known, and then at some point it strayed into some other... I don't think it's going to be like that at all, but I'm just like, I think it was just a hiccup and Mikasa forgot. Then we see later that Gabby is helping out at this orphanage, and when it first shows her and the horse, I was like, if that's Gabby, I hope that horse bites her. And then it did, and I just wrote in my notes, LOL. And then Kaya, we discover, is the name of the girl who Sasha had saved way earlier in the show. And now she's having to sit and be nice to... Or she doesn't have to. She is nice to Falco and Gabby, not realizing that Gabby's the one that killed Sasha. And then I also wrote, because you see Zeke apparently having some ulterior motives or something. I was like, dude, Rainer's gotta be losing his mind, right? Because... stupid Zeke is the one that was kind of like their leader when they were on this mission, on this island. Zeke was there, and he's the one that could have tried at least to be like, hey, Cart Titan, how about you kill Eren, or at least eat him or something, and then we can save Berthold. He could have done that, but instead he's like, sorry, Berthold, your time's up, and then just dips. I was like, wow, you really are the worst. Anyway, then they do pick up Rainer on their way out, but regardless, he probably could have tried, him and Cart Titan could have, whatever it's called, I forget, I think it's called something like that. They could have tried to save Berthold, and they didn't. He really continuously led Berthold and Rainer to attack people that they were starting to kind of care for, only to then sort of betray and turn his back. Maybe, I don't even know the full details, but I'm just like, dude, Rainer's got to be so mad, right? If he's piecing all of this together, he's got to be like, hey, what the heck? What the heck? Anyway, the next episode is titled Guides. You do see Zachary, I think is his name. That guy with the weird chair thing. He had some people bring his chair in, his prized possession. Mikasa and Armin are looking at it because they're like, we think we should be able to go talk to Eren. And he's like, no. And then they look at the chair and they're thinking, hey, maybe don't use that. And it's implied that he is planning to maybe torture Eren for information. And I'm like, that's a terrible idea. That's a really stupid idea. One of the dumbest that you could possibly have. You know he can just turn into a Titan, right? I don't understand why that would ever be his conclusion. Like, why not just let Mikasa and Armin at least try to talk to him? I guess on one hand, I'm thinking maybe he really wanted to torture Eren so badly that he didn't actually want there to be any kind of resolution, because he's like, yeah, another opportunity to use my chair. Or, well, no, he's for sure dead. Because there's a part I'm like, is he dead? Because the show does like to pull a lot of, you think someone's, I'm like, no, he's dead. I'm pretty sure they showed his body. So I was going to say, like, maybe there's a plot here too. I don't think so. I think he's fully dead. But anyway, I thought that was a terrible idea. Really stupid, top-notch, dumb idea. And then I put, Armin wants to just talk to Eren, but when has that ever worked? Because Armin's over here like, if only I could talk to him, I think I'd be able to convince him. And I was like, that's never worked. That has never worked. Never ever has Armin, maybe that's not totally true, I shouldn't speak in these absolutes, but pretty much for the most part, anytime Armin tries to communicate with anybody, he's like, what if I try to extend a hand to Berthold? What if I try to talk Eren down? What if I try? Like, it never ends up happening. It's kind of sad. Everybody just is like, whatever, Armin, and then moves on. I'm going through my notes kind of fast at this point because I really want to get to the last episode of this batch. Anyway, this is called Children of the Forest, which had one of the saddest moments in it, which is when there's the reveal about the wine, which, oh my gosh. And then that character, though, Niccolo, wants to kill Gabby. And then Sasha's father, even knowing Gabby was responsible, has an awareness of the fact that this needs to stop, this needs to end. And he says something along the lines of, it's our responsibility to keep the youngins from the forest. And he was saying how Sasha was in the forest for too long. And I don't know why, but that line, it really hit. I thought it was great and sad, and it was upsetting, but in a good way. It was great. That whole scene, though, was so intense, and it was very contained. It's intense despite the fact that there's no Titan around or anything like that in this moment. Just these reveals are happening, interpersonal type of reveals, on top of some really significant other reveals. So, going through my notes, I put, is Eren somehow actually the one using Zeke? We don't need to keep going with that because we already did. And then I loved when Levi tells stupid Zeke, because Zeke's like, oh, that village. And then Levi says, it's not that village, it's Rogoko. Don't forget the name of the village you slaughtered, you bearded. And then he curses at him, and I was like, yeah. And then Zeke trying to act like he's doing everything for Eldians is ridiculous. I was like, no, you're not. No, you absolutely are not. I know I could be wrong, and I don't care, because currently, this time, I'm like, there's no way killing so many Eldians over and over and over again is somehow for the best. I don't believe you. And I also put, he could have controlled Titans and had them fight against Marley. That's what's crazy to me, is he has the ability, because of how they use his spinal fluid, to turn people into Titans, and then he can just basically roar, and then, oh, Titans appear. Why would you not do that, and then basically hold the Marleyans in check until they give you guys your rights? Like, the idea of like, well, I had to use these Eldians to go kill a bunch of other Eldians. I had to, because it's what's the best thing for them. I'm like, it's not. There's no way. I don't believe it. Unless I'm wrong, which is possible, but whatever. I also have in my notes, oh no, Falco, because Falco gets hit with the wine bottle when Niccolo tries to hit Gabby. I was like, not Falco, sweet Falco. The whole, gosh, Gabby. Here, and see, this is why I continuously am like, Gabby, snap out of it, gosh. And she's so frustrating to me, even though I understand. But when she hears Niccolo saying, like, I loved her, she liked my food, and all these things about Sasha, and she says that devil woman bewitched you, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, Gabby, come on. Can we not do that? Like, Niccolo doesn't have any sense of his own agency, and also, how does that even work, dummy? Again, I do know. I'm aware that it's my raw reaction while I'm watching where I'm just like, you dummy, but also I understand why she feels this way, but Falco's, that's what's so, I think the juxtaposition of these two characters, I'm just like, just listen to Falco. Listen to Falco. And in a way, it's kind of similar to Armin and Eren a little bit, which, that leads us to our next point, which I said, well, hey, Eren, because he just walks in and you're like, whoa, what the heck? Eren's here. And who knew that apparently saying, oh, what, Eren's here would be such a big deal, but he just waltzes in, you're like, huh? And then I also wrote, Flock is so obnoxious. Then we lead off with this chunk, with this final episode 73, which is titled Savagery. What a awful place to end this batch of episodes. Oh my gosh. So Eren's here, and they're all just sitting there, and I was like, dude, say something. They sat there quietly for way too long. Not literally, but for I was frustrated because I was like, explain yourself, which that's not even what he comes close to doing. He just says terrible things to his friends. So I put Eren saying he's always hated Mikasa is messed up. Also, Mikasa has hit him before. So this whole thing about you're a slave to whoever it is you're supposed to serve, and you wrongfully basically imprinted on me, and that's why you're so loyal to me, and I've honestly always hated you. I'm like, she smacked you in the face, though. And I'm pretty sure she was fine after she did it. And if you're like, what? When? A reminder, way back in episode 2, I think, Armin's like, hey, Eren, huh? Like, he's trying to be nice, and Eren's like, shut up, and yelling. I don't know what he says. I forgot. But he's yelling at Armin, and he's being rude, and Mikasa hits him. And I remember this very distinctly, because this is when I was watching the dub instead of the sub. And Eren was driving me up a wall because he was just screaming constantly. And so it was so satisfying when she finally shut him up, because he was being so frustrating that I'm like, dude, I know he's seen a lot, but my goodness, inside voices for half a second, please. And she smacked him, and I was like, thank you. And then later, Krista smacks him, which I know that's not Mikasa, but when Krista smacks him, when he's like, guys, you should kill me. I'm useless, and everybody, and then Krista smacks him and is like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I noted that apparently, as a joke, I said Eren apparently needs to be smacked every now and then to have some sense knocked into him, because it happened with Mikasa and it happened with Krista. So this is burned into my brain. So as soon as he said, you can't, because Mikasa, when Armin goes to smack him for being awful to Mikasa, she immediately like stops him. But I'm like, I feel like that's just instinct. I don't feel like maybe there's some additional instinct that is rooted in magic as opposed to just an instinct to protect her friends. I don't know. But I'm like, okay, I don't feel like based off of what you're saying that she would have been able to literally hit you. He says something like, if you go against this, you get really bad headaches or something like that. But I'm like, that means that after because that's about as far from protecting him as you can go, to literally hit him in the head. I'm like, I feel like she would have instantly had a headache back when that happened. Because this was after, because you see her backstory later, but chronologically her backstory happened when they were really little, and then the destruction that you see in the first couple of episodes, like I said, chronologically is later, which means she shouldn't have been able to hit him then. And if she had, based off of what he was saying, she should have felt some kind of pain or something, which I don't recall that happening. I don't recall her being like, in a really dramatic way right after she smacked him. If anything, he was the one that immediately felt that way. So I'm like, Eren's lying. Something else is going on. He's trying to push his friends away, but I don't know why, and I'm annoyed. Unless he really is just spiraling. I don't know. I don't think so. Anyway, the wine. So this was juicy. This whole thing of like, oh, because you keep seeing the wine. You're like, what's up with the wine? At least that was myself and my husband. The whole time we're like, what's up with that wine? Niccolo seemed to go way out of his way to keep the wine from Sean. And you're like, okay, he's trying to do it to protect them, because he doesn't know fully, but he knows something's up with the wine. Then he reveals, it has some of Zeke's spinal fluid in it, which again, this is why we don't trust Zeke, because Zeke was like, oh, as soon as people come in contact with any form of my spinal fluid, they immediately collapse and all these things. And so they're like, oh, well, that's never happened, so I guess that there's nothing strange going on with this. Anyway, so that proved untrue. So you see that all of these people who have had this wine, as soon as Zeke goes into his roar mode, whatever, if this was a video game, it'd be a button that you press that then makes this activate. But anyway, whenever he presses circle to activate this, he turns all these people into Titans. Specifically, you see all of the scouts that are with Levi turn into Titans. And I'm like, not again. Not again. Levi always ends up having to deal with this kind of stuff, and it sucks. But he deals with it very well. And I said in my notes, if Levi dies, I will riot. And then he chases after Zeke, who's like, and you're like, well, yeah, man, you saw how he destroyed all your Titans before. You're really surprised? But anyway, he says, what about your buddies? Very, like, villain. And I wrote in my notes, he accepted that a long time ago, which he did, which is great subtle character development, because you see him wrestle with this when Erwin is recovering and he's weirdly like happy about them finding out, oh, I think the Titans are people. And he's like, why are you smiling? Levi says that to Erwin. Erwin's like, because we're getting answers. And Levi's like, but they're people. I've been killing people this whole time. And he obviously, this is something that he has had weighing on him, but it's also something that he has kind of like Armin. It's just something that he has accepted as a fact. So I was like, buddy, a little too late. He already knows that he's killing people and he's processed this for years at this point. And if killing these Titan forms of people he formerly was friends with or knew at the very least, if that's gonna get him closer to killing you, you think he's gonna not suddenly be up to the task? He of course is going. It's Levi. So I kind of enjoy how much Zeke has underestimated him. And then the last thing I wrote is I hope Hanji kills Flock. Because the Commandant being beaten by stupid Flock's like, oh, well, if you want to show your loyalty, you gotta beat this guy. And then they're like, what? And then the Commandant, I think, to try to ensure that Hanji doesn't interfere or get herself hurt, he was like, let's see them try. I'm the best. And I'm just like, oh, this is gonna end poorly. And it did. And do I hate Flock more than Zeke? I don't know. I hate them both a lot. Like, Flock has just, they're just cut from the same cloth. I think that's what it comes. I hate them both. I hate them both so much. Flock I've had less time to hate. So I suppose if this was like we've built interest onto it, then I hate Zeke more. But if we just take that out and if we think about how quickly I've come to hate them, I think I hated Flock basically immediately. As soon as he was stupidly like, I brought the commander back so that he could live through this hell some more, I was like, okay. And oh, actually, that's not true. The first time I hated him was when he was like, screw the horses. I was like, bad news. Anybody that's like, animals, just leave them, right? I'm just like, no. It's the whole, if you want to make people hate a character, have them kick a dog, and if you want them to like a character, have them pet a dog. Flock is that. Immediately you're like something in your brain, and it comes down to, I feel like, his reaction to the horses. Our brains are like, this guy sucks. And then he very quickly has shown himself to indeed suck a lot. Anyway, so I guess I'm ending this video by just talking about how much I don't want to give him any more attention. So let's just summarize this by saying that I, as always, am eagerly awaiting the next chunk of episodes. I'm less scared now, even though there's obviously going to be huge repercussions for the fact that all of these people have been drinking this wine. So I'm nervous for that, but not in the same way I've been scared before. At this point, I'm just like, dude, I want my answers already. I want to know what the heck Eren is up to. I need Mikasa to just get over what Eren just said to her, because I'm like, I don't even think it's true. I need you guys to just, I don't know, whatever. I have a lot of thoughts. I just need to keep watching. I feel like that's all it comes down to. So anyway, thanks so much. Oh my gosh, I just realized I've been talking for an hour. Not quite, but I'll trim this. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was more episodes than I was planning initially. But whatever. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.
But then when I hear I've always hated you, I'm like, no, you're out of line.
Meanwhile, Luna Bear is very relaxed. Luna is very relaxed. Oh, little bear.